Hey Highway, I'm Andre Houssney at Horizons International Crossroads here in Boulder, up near the university campus. And Pastor Steve asked me to tell you this story that just kind of illustrates the importance of international student ministry and reaching out to the people that have come from all over the world to our doorstep. The story is about a young man by the name of Saeed Qutb, who came to the U.S. from Egypt. When he was, in his early 20s, he was a student, and he came to Colorado. And he actually didn't come to CU, but he came to what's now UNC up in Greeley in the 1950s. And if you can picture what Greeley might have looked like to a little brown person in the 1950s, it might have not been so friendly to him, and certainly that was his experience. He ended up, during the time that he was here as a student, finding that Americans were self-centered, self-focused, that they were materialistic, that they were interested in just things that weren't good or, in his eyes, moral. And so for his whole time here, he basically didn't have a meaningful relationship with an American. But he was invited to church at one point, and he was invited to an event at the First Presbyterian Church in Greeley. And that event turned out to be a sock hop, and he described in his autobiography later in life that he was in this church, and it was nighttime, and there were men and women dancing together and boys and girls flirting, and he was just turned off, and he was disgusted because I think when it came down to it, nobody showed an interest in him, and nobody gave him a deeper perspective on the American experience and to prove him wrong. And it ended up that he became an author, a writer. He ended up getting thrown in jail in Egypt because he was the leader of the burgeoning Islamic Brotherhood movement. And he wrote a book called Milestones, in which he described his experiences in America. And he basically outlined that America, he felt, was corrupt and needed to fall, and that Islam was what was going to replace it. And he ended up being the direct inspiration and personal mentor to a guy named Osama bin Laden. And I don't tell that story to be over sensational or hyped up, but that actually happened, and that happened in our backyard. And the question maybe that we need to ask ourselves from this story is, what would have happened differently if somebody would have loved on that guy? What would have happened differently if he would have had a meaningful relationship with an American that might have been able to show him the love of Christ? Now, best case scenario, he would have come to Christ. But maybe even without that, his criticism might have been blunted. He might have had reason to really think twice before condemning all of Western society. Now, most of the international students that we come in contact with are not going to have a dramatic story like that. But nevertheless, they are experiencing, by default, the rejection that we are giving them just by not paying attention to them. And how much different could it make in their lives if we just gave them some love?